Hi, my name is Kate Arnak. Um, it's the 23rd of August 2026, and I am in this video. I will tell you a story about how I view the world and the situation we're in right now. And I was watching television this morning, and there was this guy talking about how the people who vote for Trump are angry white men, um, and that Trump as a populist feeds into that. And then I thought, yeah, well, yeah, on the surface they are angry, but basically it's just fear, because anger is the cover of fear. And so they're not angry white men, they're white men who are afraid. And quite rightly so, because they've had a privileged position, still do. They have a privileged position towards women, towards people of color, and especially the middle class and upper class have a privileged position towards the poor and the disenfranchised and the precariat. And so there's this group right now in society, the middle class, which actually is shrinking. They have very good reason to be afraid, but not because it's the poor and the colored who are taking over the world. It's because the 1% is taking over the world and taking their money, which is the irony of the whole thing, because they vote for the 1% who own the politicians and rule the government, and they vote for these populists and who feed into their fear of losing out. And these populists are telling them that they're losing out to women and people of color, and they're not. They're losing out to the 1%. But this is the narrative. So you start with white men who are afraid to lose their privileged position and their money. I'm talking about the middle class, who are pretty well off. And, oh, I'm having a throat thing. And why are they losing money? Why are they afraid to lose money? Well, where did they get this privileged position, and where did they get this money? Well, actually, they became middle class in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when we had a democratic government who created the welfare state. And the unions who negotiated a good pay for labor and for the workers, and the worker camps who made sure that workers were paid well, and the politicians who made the laws to protect workers and their work environment. Because in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we were building a new world, a brave new world. It was a hippie kind of time, and we wanted a better life for everyone. And so a lot of the poor people and the workers basically lives improved in such a way that they became middle class, and the middle class became larger and larger and larger, and that became the base of our democratic society. And the welfare state was built, and that is where the 50 plus are still having such good lives and rich lives and sheltered lives because of all the laws and provisions that were made in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the pension funds, the Medicaid, the Medicare, etc. And right now, those people who have the privilege of being middle class, of having had the advantages of that government, those laws and those negotiations, and the industry was being built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And what was happening was that there was a lot of investment in factories, in building, in research, in education. And that is what made the boom of the Western world possible, both in Europe and in the United States. And when did this change? It changed with neoliberalism. And in the 80s, when companies no longer invested in workers and production, but they used their money to buy assets, buy back their stocks, buy assets, which generated rent. And so we went from active income to passive income. And not a production economy, but a financial economy, and that carried this wealth and prosperity even further for this particular generation of baby boom and a bit later, because they were middle class. They had invested in the pensions funds, etc., and buying a house and having these assets in the financial system. They could, through rent, add to these assets and become even more wealthy, or gather more assets and more passive income. So we're talking about this group, and this group, which are mostly white males, but we do have white females as well. And that is basically this the demographic which supports populists and who is most afraid of losing. Because the poor are not afraid of losing anything. They already lost everything. They never had anything. And as you can see, the poor, the precariat, they call it, where people are living from month to month, paycheck to paycheck. They have no assets. They do not collect rent. They have debts. And they're on the brink of becoming homeless if they don't get paid for a month. So that group has gone from 20% to 40%, and the middle class is shrinking because they're falling down the ladder. And the upper middle class is fine. They have a lot of assets. They earn their passive income, and they're fine. They have a lot of tax cuts. Tax cuts which were negotiated by the 1% to make sure they can keep their money. So what's happening now is the middle class is being squeezed, and they're being squeezed out of their assets because the rich, the upper middle class and the rich, they want their assets. Their whole financial economy strategy is buying more and more and more assets, which generate more and more rent income, passive income, rent. And with that rent, they buy more and more assets. So this group in the middle, which is being squeezed and who's afraid they'll lose their privileges and their pension, they vote for people like Trump, and that's because he's a populist. So what's a populist? It's basically a guy who will say anything. It doesn't matter what. He will say what people want to hear so he can get elected. He can get this position of power. And his sole purpose is to enrich himself and to get more power and especially more money. So the populist will say anything, doesn't matter what, whatever the people want to hear, that's what he'll say. And that will be, and because he makes all these promises, if like Trump said he will end all forever wars. Yeah, right. And he will cut taxes, which he did. The only thing is he borrowed money to cut these taxes. So it's not like you are getting more money. Yes, you are getting money now, but basically you're borrowing this money from your children. And a lot of older people say, I don't give a shit, which is fine. You can say, I don't give a shit. I'm taking all the money from my children and grandchildren so I can have a good life. But as the next generations born from the 80s onward are finding that they're stuck in the poor precariat and they can hardly escape this fate, and they do not have job security. They cannot buy a house and they will not have a pension. And that is because the government is borrowing more and more money to give tax cuts to the rich and the middle class. So back to the populist, he gets elected on promises. He promises tax cuts, classic promise, and he promises no more war. He promises to the people who elect him that they will keep their privileged position, not just in a financial kind of way, because a lot of middle class, comfortable or upper middle class people, they're not that interested in gaining a little more money, but they are interested in cultural issues like maintaining their privileged position as males, as whites, and as asset owners. So Trump is promising them, I'm the big man, I will protect you. The people of color and the poor, which are the same thing, the poor are not going to storm your bastions of wealth. They're not gonna steal your money. You're gonna be safe. Which is a fallacy in itself, because it's the 1% and the rich which steal most of the money from the middle class. But the current discourse is that the people of color and the poor are stealing money from the middle class, and that's just not true. There could be one colored person with a gun who steals your money or steals your car, but basically what induces the slide from middle class into poverty is the rich buying up all the assets. But they're saying, don't worry, because these are very frightened people, and they're getting older and they're frightened even more of losing what they have. And so that is, and the big man, the strong man with a lot of police and ICE and army is going to protect them from the poor hordes who are going to try and steal their prosperity. All of that is not true, of course. And after Trump became president, he started a forever war. He did cut taxes, but only by borrowing more money. So actually, he's borrowing money for you and sticking the debt on you and your children. So he's basically giving you a cigar out of your own cigar box. And he's sending ICE, masked, armed policemen with automatic weapons into the street. And if you look at people who've been killed, they're middle class. They're white middle class, nurses and school teachers. That's who they're killing. They're not protecting them from the hungry hordes and people of color. They're killing their own. But hey, as you can, because people who vote for these populists have so much invested in their choice and in their support of these populist politicians, they don't want to see, they don't want to accept that they don't want to admit the truth that they voted for somebody who was lying and who is not keeping his promises. And even worse, he's just extremely corrupt, and he's only in this position of power to personally enrich himself and his friends. In psychology, we call that cognitive dissonance. Is if we have a set vision of the world, this is my world, these are my truths, I believe that the strong man will protect me and save me. If that belief is strong enough, then whatever anybody says, and no matter what the facts are, people will refuse to believe it. They want to keep believing in their own fantasy world, in their own set of beliefs. They do not want to accept any change. And they will keep voting for Trump, no matter what happens. Even if they end up on the streets and become impoverished, they'll still be rooting for Trump, who is now a billion trillionaire, whatever, and they'll keep voting for him because this belief that a big man will save them, and this belief has become so much part of their own identity. Because their identity is, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm part of this group. I'm part of MAGA. This is who I support. This is who I am. So any conflicting information is threatening their identity. And they will not give up their identity. That is even more threatening than losing their money. So these people will keep on voting for these populists. Once they decided to become MAGA, to become, I am part of this identity and part of this movement, then it'll be very, very painful for them to accept that it's not true, that it's all lies, and actually they're losing the money and status and everything they were afraid to lose. So they will keep on voting for him. And that's about, if you look at the total amount of people who vote, and the voting population, about 20% is stuck in this MAGA right-wing populist vision, and they will keep on voting for him no matter what. Then we have about 10-20% on the left who believe the story of Marxism, communism, etc. Quite, on the far. It's about 20-15%, and then you have about 70% in the middle, 60% in the middle, which are what I call people of reason, who do not have their identity tied and meshed in a political movement, they could be enmeshed in a religious movement, of course. A lot of people have their identity meshed with a religious movement. And so a lot of people vote who their minister or Christian, because the West is a Christian community. They will vote for who the church or the religion says they should vote for. So their identity is enmeshed with this religion. And as long as, especially the very enthusiastic Christian, the Orthodox Christian religion support Trump, so you have a group also who have a Christian identity, you are told you have to vote for Trump. And so actually, even though there's a lot of corruption in the current government, with 2026, there's a lot of corruption. He started another forever war with Iran. He's not bringing peace anywhere. There's the risk of economic depression because of oil shortages. This could happen in September and October, maybe before the midterms or after. So the economic outlook is grim for the whole world, basically, because we're running out of oil and gas. And other essential products which are derived from that. All the people who most of the people who voted for Trump will vote for him again, because their identity is meshed with either Christian or MAGA or another group that supports white supremacists who also support Trump. So I know there are a lot of left wings or intellectuals or rational, non-attached persons out there who are saying, well, look at the reality of the situation. This government is driving the whole economy into a huge depression, and the price of oil, the price of gas, the price of groceries, and et cetera. Look at the reality of what we're living in. And most of the people who vote for populists like Trump and who voted for MAGA, they have their identity meshed with being a supporter of or being part of MAGA, very religious Christians who support him, or white supremacists, xenophobes, etc. And this group is very stable, and they will vote for Trump no matter what. So they're about at least 30% of the electorate. And why do I think he will win in the midterms, no matter what happens in the real world, no matter the facts? You have this group who will vote for him no matter what, because they cannot let go of that identity, and they don't want to give up their dreams. And then there's a group who will vote for him because he's going to make the same promises. He's going to promise to end the war, and don't worry, this is all part of the plan. I'm going to end this war very quickly. I have all the cards. Don't worry. I'm going to save you. He's going to, like, saving him from his own mistakes and fuck-ups. But people are going to believe him that he's going to save him. But the major fact why people will vote for him is because he will promise to reduce taxes. He will say, I promise you a tax cut. and he will actually he's targeting the people with the older generation, or people who are not young. So 40 plus, especially targeting them because they're very sensitive and very fearful of losing their pension. And right now he's saying he will reduce the tax on, now I forget the term. Oh dear, I keep forgetting stuff. Oh dear. He promised to reduce the tax on the profit you get from your assets. And that will reduce the tax on your pension and your pension fund. Was it property? No. Oh dear, I forget the name. I'm really sorry. I'll look it up, but maybe I can find it somewhere else. But anyway, he's going to say the profit you make on your 401k, the profit you make with your pension funds, the profit you make with your investments and your assets, I will reduce the taxes on that. So when you're saving for your pension, you will pay less taxes. And when your pension is paid out, you will pay less taxes. And that is why a large group of non-MAGA supporters will vote for Trump in November. And he will win, and his candidates will win. And it'll be nothing new. It's simply promising peace and a tax cut. And even though he's going to pay that tax cut from borrowing even more money, which he did the last time, and even though he hasn't been able to give peace, and he started even more wars, contrary to the facts, a lot of people want to believe him. They are afraid to lose their pension. They are afraid to lose their assets. So, they will vote for Trump because he promises them that their pension, they will pay less taxes on their pension. Now, when he reduces these taxes, it will also greatly benefit the 1% who are the major asset holders, and it'll be profitable for himself and his friends. And so he's going to borrow even more money to give you your tax cut while you voted for him. So the young people will get even bigger and bigger and bigger into debt. As you look at the national debt of America, it's skyrocketing. It was rising, but with Trump, he's spending like there's no tomorrow. And when I have a negative moment, I think, well, he's just going to promise the same thing he always promised: a tax cut and peace and no war, and people will continue to vote for him. One part, the 30%, because they will vote for him no matter what, because they're personally entangled in this movement. And 30% will vote for him because they still believe his promises that he will cut taxes. And he did cut taxes for a lot of people with money and assets, and even the middle class. It's just that he borrowed the money. So in the end, it's their children and their children who will end up paying for your tax cut. You're not getting a gift. You are borrowing money from your children. That's what's happening. But, people don't, that's all not told, that's, pushed under the carpet. And I think Trump is increasing the American debt exponentially. It's just through the roof. And this year or next year, what's going to happen is the AI bubble is real. It's about 1.2, 1.4 trillion. So what's going to happen? Because most of the stocks in the big 6, 7 companies, AI companies, most of the stocks are owned by insurance companies, by pension funds. And a few rich people and BlackRock, etc., but they'll know when to get out in time. And who's going to get stuck with the bill when the AI bubble bursts, when they find out we've invested 1.2 trillion and there's no profit? The companies are basically worthless because they're not generating a profit, and they will not generate a profit in the next 10 years. So when that bubble bursts, who can be stuck with the bill? Because the value of the stocks will plummet. And now what's going to happen is that the government will have to bail out these insurance companies and pension funds. So the government will fork out another 1.2, 1.4 trillion to save your pension funds and to save your life insurance, etc. And where's the government going to get that kind of money? Well, they're going to borrow it. So we're at 40 trillion now, and there's a deficit which has gone up to about 2 trillion. Then, so that's the government will have to borrow almost 2 trillion next year to cover the deficit and pay for the interest on their loan. And if the bubble bursts this year or next, we'll add another 1.4 trillion. So we're at 3.3 trillion, just 1 year in which so we'll be going next year. The government will hit 43, 44 trillion debt. That is, if I think in a negative way. And then if you add to that, if there really does develop an oil crisis, if there's not if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened, if because right now about 25% of the world's oil and 40% of the world's gas and 50% of the world's helium. And you say, what the fuck is helium? Well, it is essential in making microchips. When the stocks of helium run out, we will the world production of microchips will go down with 50%. That is 50. And everything has a microchip in it. Your toaster has a microchip, So that is going to be a real problem. Fertilizer is made with gas and other oil products, so fertilizer will go through the roof. Diesel, which is used in transport and in farming, will go through the roof, etc., etc. And that will generate a worldwide depression. So then a lot of companies are going to fail. A lot of people are going to rely on food stamps and welfare. More and more people will become unemployed, and farmers will have to sell their land to the big companies. So a lot more people will become dependent on welfare. And that means that government expenses will be even higher. So next year, it won't just be the current deficit. It won't just be the interest on the current debt. It won't just be the AI bubble, 1.4 trillion. It'll also be the increased expenses on all these people who are going to lose their jobs and food and housing, and to prop up this economy, to help companies survive this depression. Then the government will spend even 1 or 2 trillion more in welfare, and in stimulating the economy and supporting companies. So right now, if you add 1 or 2 trillion due to the depression, I'm at next year, for 1 year, 5 or 6 trillion that the government will have to borrow to keep America semi afloat. And that will, so in 1 year, America will go from 40 trillion debt to 45, 46 trillion debt, and no end in sight. Anyway, so if I'm in a negative frame of mind, I think, oh God, oh dear, America is going rapidly down the drain next year, and when they can't borrow anymore, when the government bonds are not at 5% as they are now, but at 10% or even more, the USA could go broke next year. That is a very negative way of thinking, of course. Now, if Trump if MAGA, if the Democrats win Congress, if the Democrats can win the midterms, then the whole picture is totally different. And it'll on an economic side, and in supporting the people to continue to have a good life, the Democrats will do a lot better. The Democrats will start taxing the rich and taxing the big companies to pay for some of this money, and not just borrow and borrow and borrow until the country is broke. So I think if the Democrats win in November, the outlook for the whole world, because America is the biggest economy, if they go down, they drag down the rest of the world. They'll drag us all down. So if the Democrats win the midterms, and they can counter, keep Trump from making even more problems and taking on even more debts, and they can work out a way to get the oil flowing again and have peace talks, etc., etc. And the outlook is a lot better, not just for the USA, but for the whole world. But that is when I'm in the positive, that I'll think, the people who vote in the midterms will be rational people who will look at the truth, at reality. They won't be swayed by empty promises. They won't be, they won't follow fake news, etc. They will be rational adult people who look at all the facts and make a wise decision. Right. So I don't know what's going to happen in November, but it's going to be the whole world is watching those 150 million voters in America, but because they are going to decide the fate of the world. If they vote for Trump, the whole world is going down the drain. We're circling the drain right now, and if Trump wins, if MAGA wins, we're going down the drain, and we're going to have a huge worldwide depression, like the 1930s. If those 150 million, at least the majority, will vote for Democrat representatives who have a social program and who want to reduce debt and want to save the economy and make peace with Iran and everybody else, and go back to their friends like Canada and Europe and reinstate the trade agreements and start being a friend again, so we can trade with each other and increase our prosperity through a better economy, then the outlook is a lot better. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but at least I'm in two minds about it. Will the people who believe the liars and who are emotionally and personally invested in a sort of belief of the big man who's going to save us, are they going to believe the lies of the populist? Well, then Trump will win, and MAGA will win, and the Republicans will win, and will go down the drain. But if the majority of the voters are smart, intelligent, grown-up people who make sure they know the facts, the real facts, and make an informed decision, a rational decision, then the outlook is for the world is very good, and we can. And we'll see 2026 as a small aberration, and we'll go on be a prosperous world. And there's a lot of stuff we can be excited about. And the economy was going well, and we do have a bright prospect. So and then I look very confidently to a prosperous future for the whole world. Unfortunately, the whole world has to wait, is dependent on these 150 million voters. But yeah, so you could, what's it going to be? But we'll find out in November.